Gopal sir, good evening.
Okay. Good evening, Dr. Matthew. How are you?
Yeah, fine, sir. We will start within 1 or 2 minutes.
Okay.
Good morning, sir. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you all?
I am fine, sir.
Fine, thank you.
Only 27 participants. Maybe joining.
Yeah, we have YouTube streaming also. Some of our students are joining that YouTube also.
Okay. I have asked my students also to join the meeting.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
They are at the stage of analysis.
Okay. Yeah.
Right time. They may ask some questions.
Yes,
Okay.
sure. You are welcome. Yeah, they are welcome.
Okay.
Because we have encouraged our students to join YouTube.
Yeah.
So our guest will be joining here and most of the
Yeah.
students will be joining YouTube. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Each time when we do analysis, we will be having new doubts, sir. Just because I am not a statistician. Maybe.
We have very good resource person. Your students can ask questions also. I think we will start then.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yes.
His Excellency has joined or not. We will see.
Yeah,
Yes,
he has joined.
Yeah,
I think we can start.
Yes.
Yeah,
Good
okay.
afternoon.
Okay, Shra, we can start.
Yes.
We can go.
Yes. Good afternoon. We have all the dignitaries on board. A warm welcome to all the participants, office bearers, and dignitaries on board. In compliance with all the online etiquette, I request all of you to unmute the mic of your devices. Thank you. There shall be a Q&A session at the end of the research talk. I request all of you to please note down your questions. At the end of in the last 10 minutes, you could either unmute yourself and ask your queries, or you could write down your questions in the chat box. Thank you. The feedback link will also be posted in the chat box at the end of the session. Upon filling of which, you will receive your certificates of attendance. Thank you very much. To initiate the program, let us observe a 1 minute of silence and invoke the blessings of the Almighty. The prayer, which springs from the heart, does wonders. Let us lead our minds to the calm of silence and remember the loving and gracious care of the Almighty, which will liberate us from the obstacles, which will open our minds to the new possibilities of each day. May His blessings protect us and lead us with the wisdom to the possibilities which we haven't even dreamt or imagined. Thank you all. On behalf of ARIO, Goa chapter, and GVM's Dr. Dada Vaidya College of Education, I, Assistant Professor Akshata Samant, welcome you all to the research talk organized by ARIO, Association of International Researchers of Indian Origin, Goa chapter, in collaboration with Goa Vidya Prasarak Mandal's Dr. Dada Vaidya College of Education, IQAC Center. Thank you. We are highly indebted to ARIO and to His Excellency, Most Reverend Dr. Joseph Mar Thomas, Bishop of Sultan Bateri and Global President ARIO, to give us this opportunity to host today's webinar as a part of the series of research talks organized by various chapters of ARIO. I welcome you all. ARIO, Association of International Researchers of Indian Origin, is a non-profit organization registered in 2010 in New York, USA. The function of the organization is to promote the well-being of Indian researchers and to enhance cooperation with India for the promotion of public good through support of activities that are themselves exclusively charitable, cultural, and educational. The mission of the organization rests on preserving, promoting, and disseminating knowledge for human welfare. The vision of ARIO is creation of knowledge for the welfare and development of the society. In accordance with the same, I must say, the vision of GVM's Dr. Dada Vaidya College of Education is professional development of the teachers for reflective, constructive, and value-based teaching learning, employing both insight and technology within the ambit of the native socio-cultural perspectives. I am sure the helping hand that ARIO has extended to GVMs will help us widen our horizons, not only in research, but in inculcating values beyond. Thank you. Meeting of the best of the minds is what we have today on this virtual platform, to which I formally welcome you. And I now request our guiding beacon and officiating principal and President ARIO Goa chapter, Dr. Georgian Matthew, to officially welcome the August gathering. Thank you. Please.
Thank you, Akshara. Today is International Day of Happiness.
Happiness, yeah.
And I'm very happy that we are having this program on this day of International Happiness. And the theme for this year's International Happiness Day is keep calm, stay wise, be kind. And we all know that the entire humanity is facing a global crisis. And lot of research work has been going on in different parts of the world to save the humanity from the pandemic. So it is very important that we all need to give importance to this aspect of research. And today, with ARIO, in collaboration with GVM's College of Education, we are going to have one more talk on a very important topic in research. And as you all know, ARIO chapter in Goa was inaugurated on 21st November 2020. And this chapter is only around 4 months old. But within these 4 months, we were able to organize various programs. Even on 21st November itself, we organized an edu talk. Then 9th January, we organized one program on writing research proposal. 16th, we organized on data collection tools. 23rd January, we organized one program. And 6th February on research design. 27th February on sampling. So Goa chapter, in collaboration with GVM's Dr. Dada Vaidya College of Education, were able to organize so many programs within these 4 months. And we have already planned for the entire year research talks and edu talk. And most probably, God willing, we will be having an edu talk also this month. And we are trying to get ex-director of NCRT, Rishikesh Senapati sir, for this talk. And all this was possible because of the blessings of our global president who joined us today, Most Reverend, His Excellency, Most Reverend Dr. Joseph Mar Thomas. And I don't need to introduce him to the Goa chapter now because some of us have already attended some programs where we listen to this great personality. And in spite of his busy and heavy responsibilities, he is always giving a lot of importance to education and research. And today, we are very happy that His Excellency, Most Reverend Dr. Joseph Mar Thomas is with us. I would like to welcome His Excellency to this program. We have our national president today, Dr. V. Raghu. Raghu sir has been a great inspiration to all of us. Even after his retirement, he has been guiding so many students for PhD. Even I had the privilege of going through some of his theses as examiner. And I'm very happy. When I called him, I said that we are going to have a program. Immediately, he responded that he would be joining. Welcome, Raghu sir, to this research talk. Thank you for joining us today. And we have the key resource person, Dr. Gopal C. Pradhan, sir, with us today. I don't need to introduce him to the people in Goa because he has been a resource person for so many programs of ACRT, and also he has been a resource person in our college, our research center, for many research talks and seminars. And I'm very happy to welcome our key resource person for today's talk, Dr. Gopal C. Pradhan. Welcome you, sir. And I would also like to welcome all the office bearers of Aereo Global, Aereo National, and different state chapters. Especially, I would like to welcome the office bearers of Aereo Goa chapter. And this program has been planned and executed today because of their hard work. Secretary Hani Babu, Treasurer Akshada Samant, Joint Secretary Subodh Haldangar, and our Vice President Dr. Delia are all with us today. And I would like to welcome all of them specially. And all the other faculty members of GVM's Dr. Dada Vaidya College of Education, research scholars of the department. We have 12 research scholars doing PhD in our college. MEd students, we have around 60 MEd students doing their post-graduation in our college. And GVM's Dr. Dada Vaidya College of Education is a unique institution in the state of Goa. And we have courses ranging from pre-primary to PhD. And this is the only institution in the state of Goa offering a PhD in education, masters in education, and a university recognized pre-primary training program. And there is not even in university education department is there. We are the only college we are offering these programs. So Aereo Goa chapter is very, very happy that we are able to collaborate with this College of Education so that we can organize more seminars. And the College of Education has signed an MOU also with many institutions like Eudoxia and many other institutions, so that we are able to. Recently we had a program, a national level seminar on NEP in collaboration with Nidhi Aayog and Bharatiya Shishan Mandal. So college is also doing a lot of work in the field of education and research. And we are very, very happy that we are able to collaborate with this Aereo Global, and that has helped us a lot in organizing various programs and even meeting great personalities and researchers from all over the world. And especially with the blessings of our Most Reverend Dr. Joseph Mark Thomas, the Bishop, we are able to take this Goa chapter further. And I wish all the best for the research talk today. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, Dr. Matthew. I now request Honorable Dr. Delia Antau, Officiating Principal, Nirmala College of Education, and Vice President Aereo, Goa Chapter, to formally introduce the presidential addresser of today's function. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is indeed my privilege to introduce to you such an eminent personality, His Excellency, Most Reverend Dr. Joseph Mar Thomas, Bishop of Bateri, who has twin passions, economics and education. Beside holding bachelor's degrees in philosophy and theology, he holds master's degrees in economics and education. After his master's in education from the University of Kerala, he went on to obtain his PhD from the same university. His thesis was entitled Economics of Education of the Weaker Section of People in Kerala State. There are several additional courses to his credit, one such being a course in counseling. He has written a series of articles in some of the current journals and dailies on the topics of education and economics, as well as on TSP, Tape Slide Program, a multidisciplinary approach. He has 23 years of teaching experience, which includes 5 years of teaching in the seminary, 8 years in Mar Ivanios College of Arts and Science, and 10 years as principal at MTT College, a teacher education institute. In addition, he has been a research guide under Kerala University from 1998 and has been guiding research studies of several PhD scholars. He has also guided dissertations of 3 philosophy students at the undergraduate level. His interest in education got him involved in innovative programs such as teaching to puppetry, production of teaching manuals, and so on. Beside attending and conducting several seminars and workshops at the national and international levels, he has also visited several countries in the Middle East, Europe, and the American continent. Apart from holding important positions in the spiritual and church institutions and organizations, including being the Senate member of the Pontifical Institute Alve, he has held numerous and varied positions in the field of education as well, right from 1978. To cut short the lengthy list, in the Kerala University itself, he has been a Senate member, member of the Board of Studies, resource person for refresher courses, as well as chairman of the Interview Board, MTA, Department of Future Studies. He has also been on various academic committees, including NAC and NCT Expert Committee as member and chairperson. He has also served as manager of several education institutions. Being on their committees, has worked also in his capacity as principal, professor, guest lecturer, and consultant besides others. He has also been the State Education Board member of the New York City, USA, and a member of the Eastern Catholic Bishops' Conference, USA. Presently, he is the international president of the Association of International Researchers of Indian Origin, that is IRIO, New York. He also holds the positions of manager, chairperson, and vice chairperson of several colleges, societies, and commissions, including the Youth Commission, Education Commission, Family Commission, Lay Commission, and so on. In his capacity as a spiritual head, he is also the International Spiritual Director of the Knights of St. John, USA, and a consultant for the following: Malankara Catholic Higher Education Institutions, the migrant missions in USA, Canada, Europe, Britain, Ireland, and the Middle East. He is also the consultant for research studies leading to degrees in MEd, MPH, and PhD for different teacher education institutions and NGOs as well. So also for career guidance. We are indeed very overwhelmed by your presence, Your Excellency, Most Reverend Dr. Joseph Mar Thomas.
Thank you, Dr. Deliantau, for such a wonderful introduction of his. I now request His Excellency, Most Reverend Dr. Joseph Mar Thomas, Bishop of Sultan Bathery and Global President ARIO, to guide us through his words of wisdom. Please.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Dr. Georgian Matthew, officiating principal of GVM's College of Education and President Area Goa Chapter. Dr. Raghu, National President of ADO. Dr. Dalia Antio, officiating principal, Nirmala Institute of Education and Vice President of Area Goa Chapter. Shida Samant, Program Coordinator and Treasurer Area Goa Chapter. Mr. Subodh Haldengar, Assistant Professor, Nirmala Institute of Education and Secretary Area Goa Chapter. Dr. Gopal C. Pradhan, Associate Professor, CRTC Goa, and the distinguished Speaker of the Day, Mr. Ganesh C. Naik, Associate Professor, GVM College of Education, Dr. M.S. Geeta, the President of the Area Kerala Chapter, Dr. Malikuti, other distinguished dignitaries, faculty members, research scholars, office bearers of area, global, national, and regional, participants of the webinar, ladies and gentlemen. I am so happy to know that Goa chapter of area is conducting a research talk in collaboration with GVM's Dr. Dada Vidya College of Education, Goa. I convey my blessings, best wishes, and prayers to the program. GVM Dr. Dada Vidya College of Education, Goa has a tradition of exemplary service to the teaching community of the higher education sector in Goa. I congratulate the officiating principal of GVM College of Education and the President of Area Goa Chapter, Dr. Georgian Matthew, the management of the college, faculty members, students for their commendable service. May God bless the GVM College family to resume their service with enhanced dedication, scholarship, leadership, and commitment. Again, I understand that the area of the Goa chapter is growing steadily with the able leadership of the President, Dr. Georgian Matthew, Vice President, Dr. Lady Ando, Treasurer Srimati Ashada Samant, Secretary Dr. Subodh Halekar, and other office bearers. I congratulate and convey my best wishes and blessings to the Goa area chapter and all the office bearers and members of area. May God bless area Goa chapter abundantly. Education is all about change and growth. It is about realizing one's full potential. It is a journey of discovery and transformation. In order to realize one's full potential and flourish in the 21st century, an educated person should develop skills like critical reflection, empirical reasoning, metacognition, and collective intelligence. The collective and individual flourishing depends on cultivating skills needed for the 21st century, such as communication skills, collaborative skills, critical thinking, problem solving, creative thinking, technology skills, media skills, and other social skills. Foster such skills and for the creation of new knowledge, we need innovative programs and practices. Research is such a form of academic endeavor that generates new knowledge. It requires a theoretical and methodological lines of thought. In our research, we expand our information about a topic through investigation, draw conclusions, suggestions, and new findings. It also gives suggestions for future improvements. I have a series of research talk undertaken by area in different chapters, and at present the research talk under the leadership of area Goa chapter will unveil the merits and demerits of different types of research programs. I wish once more God's blessings to this program. May God bless all the participants. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It was an honor to hear from. It is a great pleasure to have with us Dr. V. Regu, the National President Area and Professor, Head and Dean, Rajiv Gandhi National Institute of Development, Government of India, Chennai. Sir is an eminent research guide, School of Pedagogical Sciences, Mahatma Gandhi University, Kottayam, and an acclaimed research person himself for a number of educational talks. We were fortunate enough to hear one of his talks through the Insight Talks on time management skills. I welcome you, sir, and I request you to address the August gathering. Thank you.
Respected Most Reverend Dr. Father R. Thomas, Global President, Dr. Georgian Matthew, Principal, Dada Vaidya College of Education, Goa, Office Bearers of Area Chapter, Goa, Dr. Rajeshwari, Principal, Government College of Teacher Education, Professor Jacob Matthew, Office Bearer International, Dr. G.B. Varghese, Father Baiju from Mysore, other state presidents, Dr. Geeta, Chairperson, Kerala, and other state chairpersons, colleagues, and the chief resource person of the day, Dr. Gopal C. Pradhan, my colleagues and friends. It is really encouraging to note that Goa chapter has taken initiative in organizing such useful programs on research. The topic of the day is analysis and interpretation of data in educational research. The topic is very relevant to the students of education doing their research program and doctoral students. Of course, it has a very high utilitarian value for the students and learners of educational research. In our country, variety of research programs are organized, and it is interesting to note that most of the studies are academic in nature. This is the criticism about research in India. We focus only on academic research. We have wonderful policies of state and national policy we have, and very limited studies were carried about, policy implications and all. Recently, we have this National Education Policy 2020. It is being discussed at national level. How to implement the programs and the policies, that is being discussed. Number of webinars, number of national programs are being organized. And that program, skill development programs are introduced at school level, for example. Now, how to implement that program at school level? We don't have sufficient number of, studies about it. How to implement skill development program at school level? We need resource persons, we need technical support, we need materials, we need methods, we need a lot of system, supporting system, and even the policy makers are not clear about it. The policy it is mentioned, but how to implement it is an area of concern. So we need to study such programs, especially the new education. A lot of areas are there to be studied. I think in future our organization will be able to highlight at least some of the major issues. Well, today we need time to discuss. I don't take much of the time. I wish the program every success and take this opportunity to appreciate Goa chapter for taking this wonderful initiative. All the best. Good luck. Thank you very much for your patient listening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. V. Rekhu. I now request Mr. Subodh Hardankar, Assistant Professor, Nirmala College of Education and Joint Secretary Area, Goa Chapter, to formally introduce the esteemed resource person for today's research talk.
Good afternoon, everyone. It gives me immense pleasure to introduce the key resource person for today's webinar, Dr. Gopal C. Pradhan. Dr. Pradhan has completed his MA in Education, MA in Political Science, and PhD in Education. Presently, Dr. Pradhan is an Associate Professor of Education and State Coordinator of Diksha SCERT, Goa. Dr. Pradhan has worked at the Regional Institute of Education, NCERT, in New Delhi, Center of Advanced Studies in Education at MS University, Baroda, and at Nirmala Institute of Education, Goa University. Dr. Pradhan has a research and teaching experience of 31 years. He has taught at various levels, which includes B.Ed, M.Ed, MA, MPhil, and PhD. As far as the research guidance is concerned, Dr. Pradhan has successfully guided 8 PhD scholars and 36 M.Ed and MA education dissertations. He has worked on 10 research projects and published 35 papers and 7 books or book chapters. He is the ex-elected member of the Academic Council of Goa University, member of Goa Board, member of Board of Evaluation of Shivaji University, etc. Dr. Pradhan, thank you for agreeing to be the key resource person for today's webinar. I now hand over the session to you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. In fact, I was waiting for my turn when to start, because a program is up to 6 o'clock, I think. By the time we have to end up. At the outset, I am very much thankful to all of you for inviting me for the third or fourth time. I don't know, but I think I am for the third time or fourth time I'm coming here to share with you. First of all, I am thankful to our Reverend Father, Dr. Joseph Thomas, under whose guidance this association is working at the international level, because these days it is very difficult to have people who are working at the national and international level for development of education. So I express my sincere thanks to him, because under his guidance, this association is flourishing and doing very good job. And I'm thankful to Dr. Raghu V, who is the president for the country for this particular association. I'm thankful to Dr. Matthew and all the members of the team who have invited me for this talk. And I'm so happy that you are all having a series of talk on research, because these days I hardly find people talking about research. All are busy in teaching and how to complete the syllabus and how to do the examination and how to declare the result. But research for everyone, for every teacher, research is a part of our profession, part of our day-to-day activity. I request all my friends to mute your mic when you are not speaking, because some sounds coming, I think. Please ensure that your mic is mute. Ballav ji, Ballav Verekar ji, thank you very much. Because when you will start speaking, that time only you have to unmute your mic. So about today's topic, I think it is in relation to whatever topics we have already discussed. And since we have the group here is a very heterogeneous group, and we have very senior teachers who are very good in research. And at the same time, we have also, I think, students who are doing PhD. So we have from highest level, that is professors who have lot of experience in research, and we have students who are doing their research. So my intended target is the teachers, all those friends who are engaged in research now, and those who are doing, whether it is PhD, whether it is MA dissertation, whether it is any other research project. So our target audience for this topic is those friends who are actually on the job now, and they are at present busy in doing the research project. And as I heard, Madam was saying that there are many students who are at the stage of data analysis, and this may help them. In fact, this is not a topic that can be discussed in 1 hour or 2 hours, because analysis and interpretation of data in research, this is the most important part of any research topic that we discuss. But within 1 hour, we shall try to see, and most probably I expect more questions from you, because it is through questions that I may be able to clarify if you have any doubts on any of the points. Now, let me have a small presentation, and please take note your questions, or if you are interested to ask any question also, you can ask me at any time if it is so. I think my presentation is visible. No, it is not visible. End of slides. Present now.
Not yet, sir.
Is it visible now?
Yes.
Yes, sir, it is.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So thank you very much. Analysis and interpretation of data. Okay. Now, we all know, in fact, we discussed about this. Then we talk about research. We have to see what type of research we have, because broad classification is broadly, there are many classifications, but broadly we classify research into 2 types, quantitative and qualitative. And as I have discussed with you, I think previously, that as a beginner, I always suggest start your research, which is quantitative, because they are easy to carry out, they are easy to understand, and they are easy to complete. And qualitative research, unless you have some experience in quantitative research or any research, I say, unless you are experienced enough, it is very difficult. Sometimes it is very difficult to undertake qualitative research. So for any beginner, I always suggest experiment with quantitative research. And once you have developed the confidence, once you develop the knowledge and skills in conducting research, one should shift to qualitative research. Of course, many a time it so happens that no research can be purely classified as purely quantitative or purely qualitative. It is sometimes a matter of degree, may not be a matter of kind. It depends. But as a beginner, this is my experience. I'm just sharing with you my experience only, because it is relatively easy to carry out quantitative research. It is relatively easy to understand quantitative research. It is easy to complete on time when it is quantitative research. And that is why I always suggest that. But anyway, both the researches, in fact, that is for the beginners only. But once you have that kind of knowledge and skills, it is the qualitative research which is given more importance in social science research, including our educational research. Because most of the things, most of the variables we deal, they are most of the time they are qualitative in nature. Therefore, it is better to have qualitative research than quantitative research. But again, as I told you, it is a matter of choice, it is a matter of preference, and it is a matter of degree. And there are some researches which are both quantitative as well as qualitative. Anyway, so if you have today, most probably we are going to consider one thing, that is on quantitative research, because if necessary we may discuss how to do analysis of qualitative research maybe some other time, not possible in a short time. So as if we classify broadly into two types, that is quantitative and qualitative, accordingly the types of data that we collect, if you look at the quantitative research, then the type of data that we get is that they are broadly called as quantitative data. So the data in research that we collect, it may be quantitative, it may be qualitative. You may have both quantitative data, also qualitative data. So broadly, when you have these two types of data, you have to, all your process of analysis, the process of analysis will entirely depend on what type of data you have, because the process of analysis of data depends entirely on the nature of data that you have. If you have quantitative data, then the process of analysis will be different. If you have qualitative data, the process of analysis will be different. Not only analysis, actually the entire process of research is different in both the things, though there are many similarities, but at the same time there are very clear-cut distinctions also you have to make, that this is quantitative, and in the case of qualitative, the procedures that we follow, they are quite different. And that is why as a researcher, first of all, you have to know what type of research you are conducting. Is it quantitative or it is qualitative, or it is a combination? If it is quantitative, then what are your quantitative data? You have to understand your data, because most of the time what happens, I have seen many of the students undertaking research. Sometimes it so happens, they conduct the research and don't know whether it is qualitative data or quantitative data. There is a confusion. But for any researcher, I always suggest you start from the beginning, you get it clarified. Unless you know whether you are going to have your research quantitative or qualitative or a combination, you can't proceed. Whatever you do, that may not be effective. That is why when you are coming to data, you have to see whether you have quantitative data or qualitative data. If suppose I have quantitative data, now let us discuss about quantitative data and how to analyze those quantitative data. If time permits, we shall shift to qualitative also. Or if the question comes, I shall try to address this question. Okay. Now, when you concentrate on quantitative data, you are talking about data which are in the form of numbers. So you have the numbers. That is your quantitative data. Now, qualitative data, it may not be in number, but as you know, it may be in terms of words, in terms of symbols, in terms of textual matter, in terms of pictures, in terms of graph, in terms of diagram, in terms of anything which is not quantitative. Okay. So when you talk about quantitative data, then you have to see what are the different types of quantitative data. The quantitative data that we obtain in research, they are broadly classified into two categories. They are broadly classified into two categories, that is non-parametric data and parametric data. And what are these non-parametric data and parametric data? Now, if you look at the type of information that you collect, as those just look at whatever research you have conducted. Take that example, you will be able to understand what I am trying to share with you. That you have the objective of your research. I think you have the objectives. No research is conducted without objectives. You may have objectives, or you may have research questions also in your mind. So either objectives or research questions, and or you can say. So your objectives, if they are stated properly, then the objectives of your research specifies whether the data you are going to collect, they are quantitative in nature or qualitative in nature. It is the objectives or the research questions that you have that determines, because your objectives specify the type of variable you are dealing with. Your objectives, hypothesis, they are dealing with the variables. And as I told you, research is conducted purely about variables and on variables. There is no research possible without variables. So it is the nature of the variable. It is the nature of the variable that you have in your research which determines whether that is quantitative or that is qualitative. There are variables which are basically quantitative in nature. There are variables which are basically qualitative in nature. So it is the variable of your research that tells you whether it is quantitative or it is qualitative. Actually, you don't decide. You only decide your research project. You only decide about your topic. You only select you only take up your problem. It is your problem or it is your research that tells you whether your variables that you are having in your research project, they are basically quantitative in nature or qualitative in nature. You don't do anything. As a researcher, I have nothing to do. It is the variable which specifies, okay, Baba, I am a variable and this variable what I have is quantitative in nature. Or it is the variable which tells you that it is qualitative in nature. You don't decide. You can't change the variable. No, I have a quantitative variable, I'll convert it into qualitative. That's not possible. The basic nature of anything cannot be changed. So the basic nature of a variable remain unchanged. You have to do based on what variable you have. The basic nature cannot be changed. Any change that is artificial, that is not natural. So it is the variable that decides. You don't decide as a researcher. You only decides your problem. You only decides your objectives. You only decides your research questions. You only decides your hypothesis. But all these together tells you what are your variables and what is the nature of each of your variables. Are they qualitative? Are they quantitative? So, as I told you again, you are not deciding factor. It is the variable who decides what it is, because it is the nature of the variable. The basic nature of the variable is that it can be quantitative, it can be qualitative. So, as I told you, you decide your problem, you decide your objectives, you decide your research questions, you decide your hypothesis. And in all these 4 points that I mentioned you, in all these places you find nothing but variables. In your research problem, you have variables. In your objectives, you have variables. In your research questions, you have variable. In your hypothesis also, you have variables. Okay, so only you decide about the variables. But whether it is quantitative data or qualitative data, you cannot decide. It is your variable that will decide, and that is the deciding factor. Okay, so if your variable is quantitative in nature, then you are going to collect data which will be quantitative in nature. If your variables are qualitative in nature, then whatever information you are going to collect, those information will be qualitative in nature. So I cannot decide, only the variable decides. Only I have to follow the variables first. Once I have decided my problem, this is my topic, this is my problem, these are my objectives, these are my questions, these are my hypotheses. Next, I have no role to play except to accept what they are, because I cannot change the nature. So now my point is, once you have the variable, then if your variable is quantitative in nature, then you need to collect quantitative data. And the quantitative data that we collect, those data can be classified into either it is non-parametric data or parametric data. Now, about the non-parametric and parametric. Now, we are using the data collection tools. We are using the data collection tools to collect data. As I told you, data about what? We collect data about variables. Please note, we don't collect data about human beings. We don't collect data about individuals. We don't collect data about institutions. We collect data about variables only. And that is how we have to differentiate. Most of the time, I have seen many of my friends, they get confused. Students are, I'm collecting data from students, but I'm not collecting data about students. I'm collecting data about variables. I'm not collecting data about institutions. I'm collecting data about variables. You have to differentiate, because sometimes there is confusion. What are the institutions? That is your sample, or the respondents. They are respondents. Students are respondents. Teachers are, suppose in your research you are collecting data from teachers, from students, from principals, from so and so. All these are called respondents, or all these are called subjects of your research. They are not variables, because I cannot collect data anything else other than variables, because I am because my research is conducted about variables and on variables. So therefore, whatever data we collect using the data collection tools from the subjects or from the respondents. So when we are deciding about the data collection tools, we have to looking at the nature of the variable. We have to decide what kind of data we are collecting, and accordingly, which is the appropriate data collection tool. Now, when you talk about data collection tools, as I told you, depending upon the nature of the variables. So for example, so when you quantify, the quantification is at 4 levels. The lowest level is called the nominal, and next level is called the ordinal, next level is interval, next level is ratio. Now, when we say nominal, that is the lowest or the most crude quantitative data, the crude way of quantitative data. Those are called nominal scale data, because the scale that is used is called nominal scale. And these are called 4 levels of your quantification. The most crude one to the most refined one. The most crude one is the nominal, the most refined one is the ratio. So when we are collecting data using the tools, we have to see which type of data we are collecting: nominal scale data, or ordinal scale data, or interval scale data, or ratio scale data. Because unless I know which of these kind of data I have, I can't analyze the data. I must know which type of data I am collecting. Is it nominal scale, ordinal scale data, interval scale data, or ratio scale data? Because to make analysis of data, there are data analysis techniques depending upon the nature of your quantitative data. There are specific methods. You cannot use any method anywhere. We can't do that. For nominal scale data, there is a specific set of data analysis methods and techniques. For ordinal scale data, there is a specified set of data analysis methods and techniques.
Likewise, interval and the ratio scale data. So friends, the question is, unless I clearly know whether the data I have collected, they are nominal scaled or ordinal scale or interval scale or ratio scale, I cannot decide what data analysis methods and techniques I am supposed to use. And it happens practically. I have seen many places, many theses, many dissertations I have evaluated, I have seen. People just have some kind of data and use some kind of statistical methods without realizing that that particular statistical method is relevant or irrelevant or not relevant to that particular data they have collected. And this is a reality. And this happens because many a time, many of our friends, they don't understand the basic nature of the data they have collected. So, because unless I am very sure which kind of data I have out of these 4 types I have presented before you, and they are grouped into 2 categories, non-parametric and parametric. So if I have non-parametric data, then I have to use non-parametric data analysis methods. If I have parametric data, then I have to use parametric data analysis methods. And within non-parametric also, as I told you, for nominal scale data, I have to use the appropriate methods for that. Because the method I use for nominal scale data cannot be used for ordinal scale data. Because the nature of the variable is different. Therefore, when they are different, the treatment of data also has to be different. You cannot use the same thing in both the places. And that is why I always suggest that whoever is doing research, be clear about what type of data you have. Because subsequently, whatever you do, that will be entirely depending on this understanding of your basic nature of your data. Because you cannot use any data analysis methods anywhere. Each of the type of data determines which is the most appropriate data analysis method. And therefore, you have to, as for example, when you say nominal scale data, what is the nominal scale data? This is the nominal scale data, they are classified and counted data. You know, you can say 20 male teachers, 20 female teachers. This is called nominal scale data. They are classified and they are counted data. Classified, meaning made into groups. Okay, primary school teachers, upper primary school teachers, high school teachers, college teachers. 4 categories of teachers. These are nominal scale data. So 20 primary school teachers, 30 upper primary school teachers, 40 high school teachers, 50 secondary school teachers, higher secondary school teachers. These are nominal scale data. Here you have a number. Okay, but it is just a mere classification and mere counting, nothing else. So this is also part of quantitative data. So whenever this kind of data you have, that is a nominal scale data, accordingly you have to think which data analysis method to be used. The second level, that is called the ordinal scale. And here, this is called rank order data. Rank. See, there are some variables. You cannot quantify them directly. But only thing what you can do is, you can rank order them. Say for example, you say honesty. Honesty is a variable. Because honesty, the degree of honesty varies from one person to another person. Therefore, honesty is a variable. Okay? And you know what is variable. Okay? I don't have to tell you. Anything that varies is a variable. Okay? So anything that varies is a variable. Something that doesn't vary, then you don't have to do any research on that. Say for example, if the height of all Indians are the same, no need to do research. Because it is 5.5 feet, finished. But because the height varies, you have to find out. You have to do research on that. So the example I was giving you now about ordinal scale. So if I give you an example, honesty. Honesty is a variable. You cannot have a scale and just measure it, give them a test and find out the honesty is 60 out of 100. You cannot have something like that. Honesty of a person cannot be given marks. Okay, he is 60 out of 100, 60 honesty, out of 170 honesty. Not possible. Because the variable is such, honesty is such a variable that it cannot be quantified like that. Only thing what you can do, if you have 20 people in front of you, then you can rank order them from the highest to the lowest. From the highest to the lowest, or from lowest to the highest. Rank order. So what I want to say is that there are some variables. And remember, most of the psychological, social variables are of this type only. You cannot quantify them. There are many variables, not most, but there are many variables which you can only rank order. You cannot quantify them. You can quantify. See, we do many quantification. For example, beauty contest, they also quantify 5.6, 7.9, 8.2. But beauty is something that cannot be quantified, remember. Beauty is not a variable for quantification. Only ordinal scale can be used. If there are 10 people contesting, then you have to see from the highest to the lowest or lowest to the highest. The most beautiful to the least beautiful in that group. It is very difficult to quantify. 10.5 beauty, 6.7 beauty, not possible. If you do it, people do it, but that is not the right thing to do, because the basic nature of the variable you cannot change. The basic nature of the variable is such that it cannot be quantified like this. You can only observe. You can observe all those who are present together, and based on your judgment, you can rank order them from the highest to the lowest or the lowest to the highest, but not possible to quantify. Of course, it is so funny that we quantify everything, but that is not appropriate. That is not proper, because you don't get any essence, no meaning in that. Okay? Because you cannot change the basic nature of the variable. Honesty is a variable. You can only rank or you cannot quantify. You cannot change the basic nature of the variable. Beauty is a variable that cannot be quantified like that. We do it, but that is not the right way to do it. Okay? So, if it is rank order data, that is ordinal scale data, then your data analysis methods are different. You cannot use the same method which are used for nominal scale data for your ordinal scale data. Not possible. If you use, then that is not going to help us in any way. That is not that is proper. That is properly, I can say, that is totally inappropriate, and we should not do that. Then when you come to the interval scales, I think I have discussed with you somewhere. I don't know. So the next third level is the interval scale, where you have the equally. Say, here you quantify the variable. You have a quantity, you have a number. At the same time, in this scale, interval scale, there is equal interval. That is, say, for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of 100. For example, the interval is equal. 1, 2 is between the difference between 1 and 2. The difference is 1. Between 10 and 11, difference is 1. But those equal intervals are not actual equal interval. Not actual in the sense they are not the true, because they are not true. Why? Because there is no true zero. The zero in that scale, that is a starting point. Zero is what? Zero is a starting point only. For anything, your starting point is a zero. But the zero in this case is arbitrary zero. It is not a true zero. It is not an empirical zero, because the zero is subject to fluctuation. Zero is subject to fluctuation. Say, for example, when you say a student has got 0 marks in mathematics, we can't say that he knows nothing in mathematics. Suppose a student gets 0 marks in mathematics, we can't say or we can't claim that he doesn't know anything in mathematics. He knows something definitely in mathematics, but so far as that particular test is concerned, so far as those particular questions are concerned, he didn't know the answer of those questions only. In place of that test, in place of those questions, if some other questions were asked, perhaps he might not have got a 0. Okay? That is why it is called arbitrary zero. The zero is not a true zero in this scale. Your starting point is not a fixed starting point. That is not possible. Therefore, whatever interval you see between two numbers, two values, they are not actual. They are not actual. They look equal but not actual. For example, 5 between 5 and 10, difference is 5. Between 20 and 25, difference is 5. but this difference of 5 from 5 to 10 and the difference of 5 from 20 to 25, they are not the same. The actual values are not the same. There is a difference because your starting point is only arbitrary. When the starting point is arbitrary, all other points on the scale are bound to be arbitrary only, not fixed. They are not correctly correct. They are subject to fluctuation. Okay, but therefore the most refined scale we have is called the ratio scale. In ratio scale, what happens? The gap, the interval throughout the scale between any two adjacent points, they are the same throughout the scale. Or any difference between two, the numerical difference is the actual difference. See, when I say the numerical difference is actual difference, I just now was giving you example. In interval scale, the numerical difference between 10 and 15 is 5. And the numerical difference between 20 and 25 is 5. But these two 5, they are not the same. That is in the interval scale. But in ratio scale, the difference between 10 and 15 is 5. The difference between 20 and 25 is also 5, and they are equal. This 5 is equal to that 5. That is the beauty of ratio scale, because there is a true starting point. There is no arbitrary zero. It is the empirical zero. It is a true zero, meaning there is an actual starting point which is clearly visible. But in interval scale, the starting point is not visible to you. That is why it is called arbitrary zero. Here it is called true zero. And when there is a true zero, because your starting point is perfectly clear, starting point is fixed, definitely all other values in the scale, they are also true. They are also fixed. They will not fluctuate. But that doesn't happen in the case of interval scale. But anyway, in social sciences, what we do, almost all our scales, all our measurement falls into the category of interval scale. In reality, they all fall into the category of interval scale. But we use the same parametric statistical methods for interval and for ratio scale also, assuming that the interval scales are as refined as the ratio scale. But practically, they are not supposed to be used, but we have been doing it under the assumption that the scale we are using, they are equally good, or they are equally comparable to the ratio scale. Under that assumption only we are using the statistical method. Otherwise, we are not supposed to use them. So, as a researcher, I have to know out of these 4 levels of measurement, 4 levels of quantification, these 4 levels of quantification, which is mine in this particular variable. You may have all the 4 also. You may have 1 also. You may have 2 also. You may have 3. You may have all the 4 also in your research. That depends. I can't say, because as I told you, that depends on the variable. That depends on the nature of the variable. If your nature of the variables are such, you may have all these also, nominal also, ordinal data also, interval scale also, ratio scale also. That depends. Okay. So therefore, as I told you, it is your variables that determines what type of data you have. But as a researcher, unless you are 100% confirmed what data I have, don't make any analysis. That will not give you the fruitful result, because whatever information you will get after such analysis, that will be misleading. Therefore, as a researcher, I have to confirm, reconfirm, and assure myself that yes, this is my nominal scale data. If it is nominal scale data, then what are the data analysis methods available for me? That I have to confirm. If my data are ordinal scale data, then what are the appropriate methods available for me to analyze those ordinal scale data? As I told you, both nominal and ordinal, they are non-parametric. Interval and ratio, they are called parametric data. So, any researcher, before jumping to analysis, please confirm what level of measurement or quantification you have. Is it nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio? Accordingly, you have to proceed for analysis. Without confirming at this stage, don't make analysis, because that will lead us to nowhere. Only confusion and only confusion. And at the same time, it may so happen that unless I confirm these things, if I make analysis, I don't know what I shall get. And at the end, I don't know what will be the fate of my thesis or what will be the fate of my dissertation. Of course, if the examiner is also of that category, no problem. If he doesn't know the whether it's nominal or ordinal or interval scale, then no problem for you, because your research is like that also, he also like that. Then there is no issue. I've seen such people also. They don't know whether nominal or interval, or some analysis, nice analysis is done. So many good tables are there, very good. So many conclusions are there, fantastic. Without realizing whether the conclusions, whether the analysis are appropriate or not appropriate, or inappropriate or unappropriate. So therefore, be careful. कभी कभी नसीब ठीक नहीं है तो फिर बाद में गड़बड़ हो सकता है, इसीलिए कंफर्म बिफोर प्रोसीडिंग टू एनालिसिस, अदरवाइज डोंट प्रोसीड. ओके, I don't have to discuss with you what is data analysis. Okay, it is a systematic process. You know about these things of applying statistical or logical techniques to describe and illustrate, to explain and evaluate data in relation to the stated objectives and or the hypothesis of the concerned research project. Analytical and logical reasoning is used to gain information from the data and to draw useful conclusion from it. That's what we talk about data analysis. Analysis means that, and what analysis is done, this is what is the meaning of the data analysis. You don't have to, I don't have to discuss with these things. Now when you talk about data analysis, when you have quantitative data, there are two types of analysis or two levels of quantitative data analysis that we carry out. One is called the descriptive analysis. And second one is called inferential data analysis. So we can have descriptive analysis and we may have inferential analysis. Now, when we say descriptive analysis, again, I must share with you, you don't decide. Who am I to decide? It is my objectives, it is my hypothesis, and it is the nature of my research that decides whether I am going to have descriptive analysis or inferential data analysis. Whether I am going to have only descriptive, only inferential, or both. That depends on your objectives, that depends on your hypothesis. Okay, whether you are going to have descriptive or inferential, or both descriptive and inferential, or only descriptive or only inferential. That is the nature of your objectives and the hypothesis. They will decide. You don't decide. See, remember, once your objectives, research question, hypothesis are final, you don't decide anything. They will only decide. You have to only follow the instructions issued by your objectives, the instruction issued by your hypothesis, the instruction issued by your research question. They will issue instruction to you. You don't issue any instruction. Your instruction work only to frame, formulate those objectives and hypotheses and your research questions. Subsequently, they will dictate you. Baba, you proceed like this. What data you have to collect? Then the dictation will come from that side. Then how to collect, what methods to use, what tools to use, that instruction also you have to get from your objectives and hypotheses or your research questions. And what kind of data you are having, they only will tell you. And accordingly, what kind of data analysis methods you have to carry out, that also they will tell you, not you. Remember, you are a determining factor only up to that level. After that, they will tell you, this is the type of data you are having, and this is the type of tool you need, and this is the type of analysis you have to carry out. Okay, because your data analysis methods, data analysis process will be entirely depending upon the nature of the data you have. Okay, and the nature of data will be decided by the nature of a variable, and the nature of the variable is already there listed in your objectives and the hypothesis and your research question. Okay. See here, research is very simple thing. It is very the most simple and interesting things to do in life is research. Very systematically you can do it in a very simple way, but you have to understand the totality of everything. कभी कभी क्या होता है ना, लोग one chapter they just go through one chapter, now I'm ready to do research. No, not possible. You have to read from first chapter what is research to how to analyze data and how to make interpretation and how to report. Starting first chapter to the last chapter, you read thoroughly, understand it, everything, then only one should do research. But sometimes I have seen many of my friends, those who come to do research, those who come to take guidance also, एक दो चैप्टर पढ़ाई हो गया, चलो हम अभी कॉम्पिटेंट हो गए, रिसर्च करेंगे, फाइनली आधे रास्ते में रुक जाते हैं. द क्वेश्चन हियर इज, हमको पूरे अंडरस्टैंडिंग चाहिए, पूरा पिक्चर सामने दिखाई देना चाहिए. Unless if I close my eyes, I should be able to see my objectives, hypothesis, research questions, everything. And closing my eyes only, I have to see. I can see what is the nature of each of my variables. Closing my eyes only, I can say, okay, this is the nature of my variable. This is the type of data we need. If this is the type of data I have, then these are the methods, data analysis methods and technique I have to use. So one has to close his eyes and starting to ending, one has to decide. Because as I told you, you are not deciding anything. You have to follow the instruction issued by your research only. You have to follow the instruction of your research project. You don't give instruction to your research project. You have instruction only to prepare, only to formulate your objectives, hypothesis, and your research question. Subsequently, you have to follow their instruction and you have to proceed. And if you follow your instruction, then you will reach nowhere. That's the thing. Okay. Now, what is descriptive analysis? What is inferential data analysis? When we say descriptive analysis, that means you only describe the data. You only describe it and we don't generalize the findings. We don't generalize the findings to anywhere. We don't draw any conclusion about anything. Only we give description of what data we have. So we stop there only. We don't make any generalization. So descriptive research is to describe what you have. Whatever you have, you just describe it. That's all. And in you see, the descriptive analysis is a term actually, this is derived from the qualitative research. But in quantitative research also, we have descriptive analysis. But remember that in qualitative research, all data analysis you carry out, they are descriptive in nature. They are actually descriptive data analysis that we do in qualitative research. But in quantitative also, we have descriptive as well as inferential. In qualitative research, no inferential data analysis, all descriptive. So, as I told you, depending upon the nature, depending upon your objectives and hypothesis, you have to see whether you are going to a descriptive data analysis or inferential or combination or anyone. So that you have to do. Okay. So, as I told you, descriptive means you describe the data, describe the variable based on the information you have obtained. Okay. And there is no generalization and there is no other conclusion drawn about anything, only description of that. Okay. And but inferential data analysis, what does it mean? Here we draw inference, and this inferential data analysis involves sampling. You have to select a sample. So that means it involves generalization of your findings from the sample to the population. All those who have done research, those who are doing research, they know about it very well. I don't have to explain, because when you have a research project, you are having a sample, and whatever findings you have in the sample, you generalize those findings to the entire population from which the sample was drawn. And therefore, inferential data analysis means you are drawing inference. You draw inference from the sample about the population. We generalize the findings, whatever we find in the sample, to the population. When I say the population, meaning the population from which the sample was drawn. So this is inferential data analysis. And there are so many methods, quantitative methods of descriptive analysis as well as inferential data analysis. The list is given here. And there are many more also. It is just few important things are listed out here. So That's why they told you, unless you are sure about what analysis to carry out, you cannot carry out anything. Therefore, if your objectives of your research demands descriptive, go for descriptive. If it demands for inferential, you have to go for inferential data analysis. As I told you don't decide. I am not the deciding factor. My objectives, my research questions, my hypothesis will give me the direction, how to move and where to move and where to end. Okay, I have no control over anything now. I am controlled by these factors. I have no control over these things now. Actually, I am controlled now. That is the actually practically it happens like that only. Okay, I have hardly any choice. Once my objectives, research question, hypothesis final, I have no choice. Only they have the choice. I have no choice in that. Okay, so these are different data analysis methods which are descriptive finding mean, standard deviation, coefficient of correlation, median, quartile deviation, stenine, that is rho, that is coefficient of correlation. Then for nominal data mode, these are the descriptive data analysis. Any inferential data analysis, these are most sophisticated tests like t-test, ANOVA, ANCOVA. And this t-test, ANOVA, ANCOVA, they are mostly for the ratio and interval scale data. See, in this I have mentioned in the bracket, which is for what. That is why I was telling you. Once you know that descriptive analysis and you have ratio and interval scale data, you can go for mean, finding the mean, finding standard deviation, finding coefficient of correlation R. So unless I know mine is ratio or interval, I cannot decide this thing. Actually, as I told you, you don't decide only. Your data are interval scale data or ratio scale data, means you can use these are the descriptive analysis for you, mean, standard deviation, and that. If you have ordinal scale data, you can find the median, QD, stenine, rho, and all these things. If you have nominal scale data, you want descriptive analysis, it is the mode that you can use. Then when you come to inferential data analysis, then you have, and if you have ratio and interval scale data, then you can use t-test, ANOVA, ANCOVA. Again, the t-test will be one-tail t-test, two-tail t-test. I am not going to those descriptions, that needs to be discussed in detail. One-tail t-test, two-tail t-test. ANOVA also, there can be one-way ANOVA, two-way ANOVA, three-way ANOVA, depending upon how many factorization you have used. Factorization, variables and factors. How many? See, if you have two-factor design, it is two-way ANOVA. If you have three-factor design, three-way ANOVA. ANOVA means analysis of variance, and ANCOVA is analysis of covariance. So ANCOVA can be simple one way, it can be two way, it can be three way, depending upon the nature of your range. But these are the statistical techniques used for ratio and interval scale data. For ordinal scale data, Mann-Whitney test is used. Chi-square, sign test, these are the statistical method used. These are the inferential statistical method used when you have nominal scale data. This is just an example I am showing you. That means what I am sharing with you from the beginning. Unless you know specifically which scale data you have, you can't decide which data analysis method technique you are going to use. For sure, this is for sure. Because as I have shown you, this is just example I have given you, where you can very well see that for a specific scale data, you need a specific data analysis method. Of course, there are t-test, where to use t-test, how to use t-test, those issues are also there. Where to use ANOVA, when to use ANOVA, why to use ANOVA, those are also issues. Of course, again, you have to decide those things. But on the face value, I'm saying that for ratio and interval scale data, you can go for t-test, ANOVA, and ANCOVA. As I told you, you can have that is one-tail t-test, two-tail t-test, depending upon the nature of your hypothesis to be tested, depending upon the objectives that you have. You can have ANOVA, as I told you, one way, two way, three way, four way. That is factorial analysis of variance. Depending upon the factorization, it is done in your research, that also decided by your objectives and hypothesis. Analysis of covariance. if you have ratio scale data and interval scale data, you can use ANCOVA. But at the same time, whether one-way ANCOVA, two-way ANCOVA, that depends upon the nature of your variable. The nature of your variable, that means the nature of your objectives and hypothesis will tell you how to proceed. It is your hypothesis who will decide which type of t-test, which type of ANOVA, which type of ANCOVA you are supposed to use. And if your ordinal scale data, I give you an example. This is just an example I have given you, just to ensure that before I proceed, I must know what type of data you have, which scale data I have, accordingly, which statistical method I have to select. But it is you again, you have to decide within your each of these grouping, you have to see which type of t-test, which type of ANOVA, which type of ANCOVA, that again you decide. Ajay, example here you see nominal scale data, you can use chi-square, sign test, but where to use chi-square, where to use sign test, that again depends upon the upon your objectives and hypothesis of डाटा मतलब chi square यूज करो नहीं, कहाँ chi square लेना है, कहाँ sign test है, that also you have to decide, and that will be decided by your objectives and hypothesis. No one can decide. No one can decide. It is your objective hypothesis decide whether you want chi square or you want to use sign test if you have nominal scale data, because that again the objectives and hypothesis will tell you. Now the steps involved in data analysis. Basically, these are the steps involved when you talk about data analysis of data and interpretation, because our topic is data analysis and interpretation. These are the steps involved. You can add more steps also. Broadly, these are the points one has to understand when we are talking about analysis and interpretation of data. Now, the first thing I have told you, you have to begin from there. Statement of objectives of the study and or the research questions and or hypothesis, if any. This I have already repeatedly I have told you. Your variables are here. Okay, your variables are here, and you have to understand the nature of the variable. Then second, once you have understood the nature of the variable, you have to operationalize the variables. Give the operational definition of your variables, because without giving the operational definition, of course, you are all researchers, you know, I don't have discussed with you what is operationalization of variables or what is operational definition. So I'm not discussing those points because you have already done this thing. So, but what I'm highlighting here is, when you are thinking about data analysis, you think about first thing, that is your objectives or research questions or hypothesis or all these things, because based on that, again, in your research you are giving the operational definition of your variable. The operational definition is always contextualized. It is in your context how the variable is defined. There is no general definition. The general definitions are different. For example, intelligence, there are many definitions given, but we don't bother about those definitions. वो बड़े-बड़े लोग बड़े-बड़े definition देते हैं, हम उससे कुछ लेना देना नहीं है. We have nothing to do with that. In my research, what is the meaning of intelligence? Bas, in my research. So as I told you, operational definitions are very specific and they are contextualized in your context. In your context, what is the meaning of intelligence in your context? That is why you have to list out all the indicators of the variable. That's the operational definition. Because without operational definition, you don't know what your variable exactly is, what the nature of your variable is. Therefore, to understand the nature of the variable, one has to have the operational definition. And once you have clearly stated your objectives, research questions, hypotheses, and you have operationalized the variables, the next step is very clear to you. That is the selection or preparation of appropriate data collection tools and techniques. See, without 1 and 2, third is not possible. If anyone can make it possible without first and second, it is a miracle actually. Only miracle can do it, nothing else. A human being like me cannot do. Without 1 and 2, third is not possible. Without 1 and 1, 2, 3, 4 is not possible. Because unless I have the appropriate data collection tool or techniques, keeping in mind the nature of my variables as per the operational definition, what I cannot collect data. Okay, so then collection of appropriate data. So collection of appropriate data, 4th step. Then once you have collected the data from the respondents, once your data collected data from the subjects, then you come back and what you do? You do the coding of the data or scoring of the data, then tabulation of the data, organization of data. This is the 5th step. So I say when we say steps, these are the steps to be followed, and it is in this order. Okay, because you cannot jump from 1 to 3rd or 1 to 6, not possible. If you can jump, then that is fine. If you are capable of, at least I can't jump. If anyone is capable, no problem. Okay, so collection of data, then coding, scoring, tabulation, then comes application of appropriate statistical and or logical techniques. What you are talking analysis. So analysis is nothing, as I told you earlier. It is the application of appropriate statistical and or logical techniques. ठीक है, ये statistical के साथ साथ logical भी आता है उसमें. Okay, then what you do, come to 7th point, that is presentation of the findings in relation to the objectives and or research questions and or your hypothesis. After application statistical techniques or methods, then you present the findings. And while presenting the findings, all your presentation should be in relation to the objective that you have stated, in relation to the research questions you have formulated, in relation to the hypothesis that you have mentioned in your research. Now, then based on the findings that you have, then point number 8 coming, that is retention or rejection of hypothesis, if any, based on the findings. So based on whatever you have found, you have to see whether your hypothesis, if you have a hypothesis, I'm not saying you should have always hypothesis. If you have hypothesis, then whether hypothesis to be retained or hypothesis to be rejected based on the findings. And based on that, you have to make interpretation of the findings. Interpretation of the findings means giving essence, giving meaning to the findings. What the findings imply. What the findings imply, that is your interpretation. What message, what meaning you are attaching to the findings. And at this stage, you need a purely logical mind. Not you need an analytical, logical mind. I think somewhere I had mentioned these 2 points, analytical and logical. Somewhere it was there. So you need to do an analytical, you need to have an analytical and logical mind while making interpretation of your findings. Okay, and then at the end you have to draw conclusion based on the findings and the interpretation that you have made. So once you have drawn your conclusion, that means your data analysis and interpretation things are over. So broadly, these are the 10 steps involved in any kind of data analysis and interpretation that we carry on in any research project. Okay, this is applicable in general to any situation. And this is what we are supposed to look at when we are talking about analysis and interpretation of data. Of course, I have not gone into the technical aspect of any of these things because today had discussed the technical aspect of all these data analysis methods. We need more time. It is not possible to have a discussion on each of the different types of data analysis, quantitative data analysis methods in such a short time. But we can do that also if there is any question coming now. With this, I want to complete my small presentation before you. As I told you, only in general I have brought out the points about data analysis and interpretation. Only about some kind of things that I have presented, but this is not everything that I have. There are many more things we can discuss. So thank you all. Now you can ask me any question that you asking question is your rights, and giving answer to your question is my privilege. So thank you very much. Wish you all the best.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yes. Thank you, sir, for such an invigorating talk. I request the participants, if they have any questions or any queries or things to be discussed, they can unmute themselves and ask.
Sir, I will start with one question.
Yes, sir, please.
Gopal sir, are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir, I can hear you perfectly. Perfect.
Okay, sir. We were trying to buy some packages for our research center, also statistical packages. So what would you suggest that researchers, they should learn the statistics, or nowadays the trend is that getting everything ready-made. So I just want you to give some comments on that, using this statistical package to make our research work, more easier, or what is your take on that? Please explain to us.
Thank you, sir. Very good question. Here the point is, I am giving you an example. Okay, sir? You are doing some calculation. Okay. So whether I should buy a calculator or not to calculate. It is like that only. Now the point is, you need a calculator to calculate. But the calculator will not tell you where to do addition, where to do subtraction, where to do multiplication. It is me. It is my situation. Somebody's mic is on, I think. Disturbance is there. It is Molly. Who is the Molly Putti, madam? Okay, thank you very much. So, Dr. Methu, my point is that we need a calculator to calculate, but as a researcher, if I am going to calculate something, it is me, I have to decide whether I have to do multiplication, addition, or subtraction. So my suggestion is, you go for buying the statistical packages, but for a researcher to use the statistical package also, he has to understand which statistical method he should use. Because without understanding of that, if you keep some packages, that will be of no use. Because as I told you, unless I know which statistical methods to use where, the package will not help. So first of all, we have to equip ourselves to understand what data analysis methods are to be used in which kind of situation, and then only the packages are available that will help us. Because we have to decide. Say for example, unless you have the statistical packages where t-test is done, okay, now unless I know where to use one-tail t-test or where to use two-tail t-test, if I simply have the package, I cannot use it. So therefore, as a researcher, I have to understand. So as I told you, ANOVA, analysis of variance, you can have single factor, two factor, three factor, four factor. So where to use single factor, where to use double factor, where to use two-way, three-way, four-way ANOVA, that I have to decide. So I suggest, if you have money for that, I must suggest that you should buy some packages, but at the same time, packages cannot be used by anyone unless he has the basic understanding of the data analysis methods and techniques. But you should buy it definitely. Okay, sir?
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
But you make the people equipped with this knowledge and skills of which methods to use where and how to use it. Then only package will help you. Otherwise, the package will be there, sir. Nobody will use it.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Pradhan, I'll be asking one or two questions.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. There are some researchers who think that hypothesis is a must in educational research. Okay. If there is no hypothesis, it is not research. Then there is another question. If there is no generalization from the research, also it is not a research work. So this kind of conceptions are there regarding the importance of, sorry, not importance, I will say the essentials of hypothesis and the essential of generalization. Are they required essentially in all kind of research, or they are exceptional?
Thank you for this question. Is actually for the benefit of all our students who are doing research. Thank you very much. Now, first point is whether hypotheses have to be there or not have to be there. There is nowhere in research literature stating that hypotheses are a must. Nowhere. Nowhere is there, not necessarily also. You can have some research questions also. With research questions also one can proceed. No need of hypothesis also, but depends upon the nature of the research and depends upon the nature of the work that involves. So everywhere you don't need hypothesis. Hypothesis is not a compulsory requirement, first of all. It depends. But most of the time we see that when you talk about quantitative research, when you have purely quantitative research, say, if you have descriptive research, as I said, if my research project involves description only, there is no inferential data analysis done. So there is no question of generalization and drawing conclusions and generalization to a larger group from sample to population. It entirely depends upon the specific research project, whether it involves only description or it involves analytics, that is drawing of inferences. If my research project involves quantification, at the same time, my research is, my data collected is from a selected sample from a population, then only the question of generalization comes. But if my research is purely descriptive in nature, there is no need to draw any inference about any other population. This is because I have not selected a sample from a population. So drawing of inference or generalization comes only when the relationship of sample and population is involved. If this concept is not there, sample and population, then what is the question of? There is no question of drawing any kind of inference about or generalizing the findings from sample to population. See, generalization is always from sample to population. If it is descriptive research, no need to generalize. So it is purely depending upon the nature of the research, and therefore it is a misconception if anybody has that there has to be generalization. Okay, there is no need. It depends upon the nature of my research. Does it involve generalization? Not my research will only decide, not myself. As I told you from the beginning, I am saying that I am not the deciding factor for anything. Once I have decided my topic, my problem, my objectives, my research question, my hypothesis, my work is over. I have to follow instruction coming from this. I have no further instruction. So therefore, what the research project demands, accordingly I have to proceed. Nothing is compulsory requirement. Nothing is compulsory requirement. And anything is compulsory or not, that is depending upon the nature of your research, and nobody else can decide that. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Pradhan. I will ask a few more questions.
अच्छा पूछिए, जो पूछना है पूछिए.
This is all meant for everyone, including myself. In data analysis, now we start with using statistics and we get the result first. Thereafter, we go for interpretation, then you go for finding, then you go for conclusion. And when you write research report, you write discussion also. So there are six small things are there after we get the result. Okay, how are they interrelated, and how to write all kind of things in research report? Result, interpretation, discussion, findings, conclusion, all kind of things. Hello, you got my question?
I would like to announce that the feedback link has already been shared. So please fill in that feedback link before the program ends. I think Gopal sir has lost connection, I think.
In case you come back, then we'll ask question. Otherwise, in the meantime, you can make any announcement you like.
Anybody has a question, you can unmute and ask also. Or any observations about the program? Yes, sir has joined. You can carry on.
I was disconnected.
Yes, sir.
My
One question. Yes, we know that.
Naik sir, पूछे Naik sir.
Yeah, this was regarding the relationship between or sequence of this result, interpretations, findings, conclusion, discussion, all kind of things. What are these things are all about in research?
I didn't get your question.
This is, you see, when you use statistics, first we get result, then we try to interpret it, then we try to find out the findings, then we discuss it, then we write conclusion. So small thing about all the things, how they are interrelated, whether they are important, the sequence part, something like that. So that will be helpful to write research report to everyone, the sequence part.
This is what broadly the sequence I have given, but within that also there may be variation. But broadly the sequence, and each of these is very much important, because no research project can be carried out, can be completed till the conclusion is there. You have to reach some kind of conclusion somewhere. So from starting from your objectives till drawing of conclusion, and in between what you have, when you have the findings, say for example our findings, we have to make presentation of the findings, that is entirely based on the objectives and research question hypothesis. So based on the presentation of the findings, we have the interpretation, discussion, they are going together. Interpretation, or you can discuss separately also. So when we are discussing, we are making interpretation of the findings, meaning we are deriving meaning for the findings. What does that imply? What message does it give us? What the findings tells us all about the variables. Okay, that is what we need an analytical and logical mind to make presentation of those that. And any finding we are presenting, that finding also should be in relation to level in similar situation or in such kind of research project which are already there. So that is when we are discussing. So when you have findings, interpretation and discussion. Interpretation, discussion, they can go side by side, where a reading, the readers can get a clear-cut picture about what the findings and what the essence of those findings, what the meaning of those findings in the context of all other researches which are available in that particular field. So a reader is getting a complete picture not only of this research project findings, but also the findings of other research projects which are carried out in that particular area, so that one should get a complete picture. That is why when you say, when we talk about interpretation and discussion, at the discussion stage we bring all the issues and taking into consideration all the context in which we see. At the end, what happened when we discuss on this one research project? I am carrying out one research project. So when it is not that objective one is entirely different, objective two is entirely different, it is not like that. All these objectives together is making my research project. Therefore, when I am making interpretation of my findings and having discussion of my findings, any link is there between objective 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, all this, the link has to be established in relation to the findings that I have obtained, so that a reader who is reading, he will get a complete picture of the entire research project. Sometimes I have seen many researchers, many PhDs coming to me for assessment and evaluation. I have seen object number 1 over, object number 2 over, object number 10 over, nothing else, and there is no relationship is established. Now the question comes whether each one is different, because that is not correct. Because when I say interpretation and discussion, the totality, the entire, all this is one research project. These objectives are only different branches of that. So at the end, to get a complete picture of my research project, all the link and the mislinks and the dislink, everything has to be established, and then I should give a complete and coherent picture of the entire research project. That is what we say interpretation and discussion of your findings. And of course, at the end, you draw some conclusions based on your findings in relation to your interpretation and discussion, some sort of conclusions are to be there. Then only, so till the conclusions are arrived, research project is not complete. This I am talking about a quantitative research, not about qualitative research. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Pradhan.
If anybody else would like to have any questions.
Ma'am, I have one question to ask.
Yes, Pratiksha.
Yeah. Thank you, sir, for your very informative talk. I have a very simple question to ask. It's like, say, when we decide a sample size for a research study, may it be a research paper or PhD thesis, does the sample size depends on what kind of work that we are doing, whether it is a large scale work or a small scale work? So basically, like, how do we determine the sample size for our study?
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Now the question is about the size of the sample. Okay, what
Yes,
should
sir.
be the size of the sample? Now, see, the size of the sample depends on many factors. Actually, we need one hour discussion on that. Okay, but anyway, in short, I'm just replying to you.
Yes, sir.
The size of the sample depends on many factors, but one of the factor is that the larger the size of the sample, the less the sampling error. Have you got my point?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The larger the size of the sample, the less the sampling error. This is what
Yes,
the statisticians say. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes,
When
sir.
you increase the size of the sample, you reduce the sampling error. Okay. When you reduce the size of the sample, you are increasing the sampling error. So keeping in mind this. Secondly, what is the nature of your group, the subject, the respondent? If it is a heterogeneous, if it is more of a heterogeneous group, you need a larger sample. If it is more of a homogeneous group, you need a smaller sample.
Okay.
Okay, because if it is heterogeneous group, you need more people to make it a representative one. Okay.
Yes, sir.
If you have a homogeneous group, a small group will be a representative of the group. See, what you need is a representative group. The group should represent the population, isn't it? So the group represent the population means it depending upon again nature of the variable. See, based on the nature of the variable, whether the group is heterogeneous or homogeneous. Okay. If it is more of homogeneous, smaller sample will serve the purpose. If it is more of heterogeneous, so when I say heterogeneous, keeping in mind the variable of your research. Okay.
Yes, sir. So
Now,
I have read. Yes.
I'm giving you an example. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Actually, there are psychologists, those who did researches. Pavlov did his research on dog. Do you know that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
He didn't take a sample of dogs. Okay.
Yes, sir.
He just took one dog and he became world famous scientist,
Yes,
world
sir.
famous psychologist. He was not selecting a representative sample of dogs from this street, this dog from this house, this dog. No, there was no different sample of dogs because the nature of the variable that was involved. Okay, that is
Yes, sir.
found in all dogs. Are you getting my point?
Yes, sir.
So if you take one dog, that one dog represents all dogs because the variable that you have taken represents all dogs. Got my point? No. So
Yes,
therefore, it is the dependency. That's what I'm saying. I cannot give you answer that your sample size should be 10 or 15 or 20. All
True.
these factors should be taken into consideration in deciding the sample size. That is the principle involved in sampling. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All these
So,
factors together decide.
yeah.
Not I cannot decide. Okay.
Yes, sir. Sir, could I just continue with our question? Just one more clarification.
Yes. Yes.
Because when some of the research publications, like those journals, they ask you to increase the sample size. So they refer us to one formula to calculate the sample size. Many researchers do that. So is it necessary that we calculate the sample size based on that formula, or do we decide based on the factors which are mentioned along with the formula?
See, that formula is there. I know about that formula. The question here is where that formula is applicable. First of all, for any researcher to decide about sample size. Okay.
Yes, sir.
As I told you again, it may be repetition of that. Before deciding sample size, just see, keeping in mind the variables under study, whether the group is homogeneous or heterogeneous.
Heterogeneous. Okay, sir.
Okay, that is first.
Yes, sir.
Must see. If it is suppose I have a variable which is present in all the entire population. Okay. If I take one person also, that person is totally representing the group only.
Exactly, sir.
So
Yes.
one is enough. So
Okay.
what formula I need?
Yes.
Okay.
Understood.
So,
Yes, sir.
so that's what I'm saying. I cannot decide the size sitting here. I have to look at your research.
Yes.
Each
Exactly. Yes, sir.
research is different.
Yes, sir.
Depending upon that, but generally what people say, take 10%. Fine, take 10%. But I say Pavlov had not taken 10% of the dogs.
True, sir.
He had taken one dog only.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the
Yes,
person
sir.
who did research on chimpanzee, he took one chimpanzee. He was not taking a 10% chimpanzee.
Yes, sir.
Because the nature of the research, nature of the behavior was like that.
Yes, sir.
So those who said increase the size, decrease the size, I don't agree with that, because without looking at the research project, I cannot decide.
True,
What
sir.
should be.
Yes, sir. Yes,
One
sir.
has to know that there is no, but only thing I say, in most of the social science research, what happens, mostly we get a heterogeneous population, mostly. Okay.
Yes, sir.
If the group is more of heterogeneous, then you accordingly increase the size, because increasing the size of the sample, reducing the
Reduce the sampling error. Yes, sir.
there is
Understood,
a
sir. Yeah.
relationship. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Accordingly,
Understood.
everything. So therefore, no person can decide in isolation. One has to
Okay.
decide only in relation to that specific research project.
Research. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Understood. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, I see. We observe that Manu Anthony has raised the hand. Would you like to share your query, or do you have a question? Okay. Would any other participants like to ask any questions? Yes. I think, Pradhan sir, we conclude that you have very satisfactorily answered all the questions. It was a very fruitful discussion that you had with us. Thank you very much. If there are any more queries or questions that you have, the participants have, you can kindly email it to us and we would forward it to the resource person.
Anytime you can ask any question, no issue at all. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
I shall try.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
I now request Mr. Ganesh Chandra Naik, Associate Professor and IQAC Director, GVM's Dr. Dada Vaidya College of Education, to express the vote of thanks.
Sir, can you please show your face on the screen?
Okay, am I audible, Akshata?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay.
You can go ahead, sir. Thank you.
Okay, it is my great pleasure to propose vote of thanks to all who responsibly carried out their role in this program. At the outset, I sincerely thank Dr. G.C. Pradhan, the resource person of this talk. He elaborately and clearly provided his deep insight in data analysis and interpretation. He comes to the level of the audience in his explanation, a very good practice for a presenter. We all enjoyed and learned from this talk. Thank you very much, Dr. Pradhan. The presidential address of Global President of ARIO, His Excellency Most Revered Dr. Joseph Mark Thomas, was very appropriate to this occasion. We are all very much thankful to you, sir, for your kind presence and blessings. We are thankful to Dr. V. Raghu, National President of ARIO, for his felicitation address. We thank to our officiating principal, Dr. Jojan Matthew, for his masterminding this entire talk and giving his welcome address. I sincerely thank Dr. Dalia Antau, officiating principal of Nirmala Institute of Education, Panaji, also Vice President of Aero Goa chapter, for our introduction to President of Aero Global President. Mr. Subhash Haldankar, Assistant Professor of NIE, deserves a sincere thanks for his introduction to Dr. G.C. Pradhan, the resource person of this talk. I thank our Assistant Professor, Mrs. Akshata Samant, who not only gave introduction to the program, but was behind the screen to conduct the feedback session. Mrs. Hani Babu also deserves thanks for planning this program meticulously. Last but not the least, our most valuable participants, including our research scholars, MA students, teachers, and office bearers of different state chapters of ARU, deserve a big thanks for being with us in our program. We hope their participation in all our future programs like this. Once again, I thank one and all. Thank you very much, everyone. Now it is over to Mrs. Akshata Samant.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jojan. It was
Thank
very
you. Morikuti
informative.
teacher, thank you for the encouragement.
Yes.
You were clapping and encouraging us. Thank you very much for joining. Is the teacher, thank you. Thank you so much for joining. Raghu sir,
Thank
I
you,
think Raghu
Dr.
sir may have
Jojan.
left. Yeah, thank you. Thank you
I
so
am
much for
here.
joining. We would like to welcome you all to Goa. Once the pandemic is over, we will have a conference here of ARIO. So you are all welcome to Goa.
Okay, Jojan. Dr. Jojan.
Yes. I think Dr. GB has left.
Sir, Dr. Jojan, we would like to see the face of our resource person. That's why I was asking.
Yeah, Gopal sir, can you please? Gopal sir.
Yes,
Gopal
sir.
sir, you can just switch on the video, sir. That participants wants to see you. Some of them are from other states. They want to see you. They have not seen you. Can you switch on the video, sir? Just adjust the camera, sir. We cannot see the face properly.
And switch on the light. Switch on the light also. Light.
Switch on the light. And adjust the camera, sir, little bit, because your face is not seen full. Only half.
There's a problem with the camera, it seems.
Yeah. Little more you can adjust.
The other way.
It is from the computer, yeah? Yeah,
Namaskar.
okay, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Nice meeting you.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank
You
you,
are
sir.
all
Thank you
welcome
very
to
much.
Goa. We will call Gopal sir and we'll have a conference. We'll call Gopal sir also as the resource person.
Thank you, sir.
Useful and informative now.
Nice song, nice song. Give the teacher who is singing
Yes,
now.
sir. Yes.
Somebody is singing. I am hearing.
No, sir. No, my grandchildren is here.
Very nice and very useful.
Okay. Once again, thank you all for joining.
Thank you,
different
everyone.
parts.
Thank you, sir.
Goa, Karnataka, and all that.
Gopal, sir.
Kerala. Yeah. Thank
Jordan,
you.
sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
So thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Dr.
Bye.
Jojan.
Gopal sir, thank you once again. Yeah.
Bye, sir. Milenge.
Bye.
Yes, bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much, Dr. Matthew, and your whole team.
Thank you, Delia
Dr.
teacher,
Samant,
thank you,
and
sister.
also Dr. Ganesh and all of you, the whole team, for doing such an excellent job. The talk also was very good, very informative, very systematic, very simple. Came down to our level, I think, to most of us. I mean, including students, and they catered to all category of people. It was really very nice. So thank you very much for having organized this and for making us part of this program. Thank you very much, Dr. Matthew.
Organized in collaboration with ARIO Goa chapter. Sister Delia, next
Yes,
talk
Dr.
you can organize.
Yeah. Yes, Doctor. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, bye. Bye. Good night to all. Bye. Have a nice evening.
Bye.
Bye.